Here's a question. What would you do if you found a wallet with over $1,000 inside, and you were 3 weeks behind on rent? Cora Davidson, a 28-year-old janitor working the overnight shift at a Fortune 500 company, faced exactly that choice. She found the wallet near the executive elevators. She could have kept it. No one would have known. Instead, she returned it. And for doing the right thing? She was accused of theft, humiliated in front of her coworkers, and nearly fired. What happens when a simple act of honesty becomes your greatest mistake? You're about to find out. Before we begin, click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now let's get into the story. The morning silence of Harris Global Industries hung heavy in the air, broken only by the rhythmic swish of a wet mop and the distant hum of awakening machinery. The wallet lay there, brown leather, expensive-looking, embossed with gold initials WH, half visible near the polished chrome base of the executive elevator bank on the 42nd floor. The overhead lights caught its corner, making it gleam like forbidden treasure. Cora Davidson, 42 years old, saw it first. She was 3 hours into her overnight shift, pushing her yellow janitorial cart past marble columns and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a city still wrapped in pre-dawn darkness. The world felt too quiet and too judgmental, and her rubber-soled shoes, worn thin at the heels, squeaked softly with every step against the mirror-shine floors she'd just polished. Cora stopped. Her pulse quickened as she glanced around the vast lobby. It was empty except for a security guard visible through glass doors 2 floors below, scrolling through his phone. No one running back. No one calling out, "Excuse me, I dropped something." Just the whisper of the ventilation system and the weight of her own reflection in the darkened windows. She knelt down slowly, her knees protesting, then picked it up. The leather felt buttery soft and heavy, nothing like the threadbare vinyl wallet she kept in her locker with her bus card and expired coupons. For a second, she just held it, her gloved fingers trembling. Then responsibility overrode temptation. She opened it. Her breath stopped. Inside was money. Real money. $100 bills, crisp and sequential, still smelling faintly of ink. Behind them, a sleek black credit card with no limit visible, business cards from investment firms, a silver-framed photo of a distinguished man with his family. She didn't count, didn't dare, but she could see there was easily over $1,000 folded inside. Cora counted slowly under her breath as she stood before the security desk, watching Jimmy Rodriguez log the wallet into the found property book. His pen scratched against the page. Brown leather wallet. Gold initials WH contents. Cash, cards, photo. Found by C. Davidson, 4:52 a.m. "You're a good woman, Cora," Jimmy said, sliding the wallet into a locked drawer. "Not many people would have done that." She nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of what that money could have meant. The pink disconnection notice taped to her apartment door. The landlord's increasingly cold voicemails. 3 weeks late on rent, and the wallet she just turned in could have solved everything. But that wasn't who she was. That wasn't who Mama raised her to be. She returned to her cart and finished her shift in silence, the sky outside slowly bleeding from black to gray to the pale blue of morning. By 6:30, the building began to wake, dress shoes clicking against marble, coffee brewing in executive lounges, the low murmur of people who belonged here in ways she never would. At 7:15, her radio crackled. "Cora Davidson, report to the 59th floor. Executive wing." Immediately, her stomach dropped. The elevator ride felt endless. Cora watched the numbers climb, 30, 40, 50, each floor taking her further from the safety of mop water and ammonia, further into a world of glass walls and leather chairs and people who never looked janitors in the eye. The 59th floor opened into a cathedral of corporate power. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below like a kingdom. Polished mahogany, chrome fixtures, abstract art that probably cost more than her annual salary. A young woman in a crisp blouse barely glanced up from her desk. "Mr. Harris is waiting." End of the hall. Cora's hands trembled as she walked. Her orange overalls felt garish against the muted grays and blues of executive territory. A security officer stood outside the glass-walled corner office, arms crossed, face unreadable. Inside, a man sat behind a desk the size of her kitchen table. Weston Harris. She'd never seen him in person, Only in the lobby portraits and the company newsletter photos where he smiled and shook hands with politicians and philanthropists. In person, he was imposing. 65 but ageless in the way wealth preserves people. Silver hair swept back, navy suit tailored to perfection, eyes sharp and cold as surgical steel. He didn't invite her to sit. The wallet sat on his desk between them. Ms. Davidson. His voice was clipped, controlled. You found this? Yes, sir. About 5 this morning. Near the executive elevators. And you turned it in to security? Yes, sir. Weston Harris picked up the wallet slowly, deliberately. Then he slammed it down on the desk so hard Cora flinched. So you found it? Or did you decide to keep it first? The accusation hit her like a slap. What? There was $1,200 in this wallet when I left it in the conference room yesterday. His jaw tightened. When I got it back this morning, there was $1,100. Cora's heart hammered against her ribs. I didn't take anything. I turned it in exactly as I found it. Did you? He leaned forward, eyes boring into her. Because it smells like disinfectant, Ms. Davidson. Like someone handled it with chemical-soaked gloves. Someone who cleans floors for a living. The room tilted. She gripped the edge of his desk to steady herself. I wear gloves because I work with cleaning supplies. I picked it up, yes, but I didn't open it. I didn't count anything. I took it straight to security. Jimmy Rodriguez logged it at 4:52 a.m. Weston's tone was ice. You were alone with this wallet for how long before that? 5 minutes? 10? I don't know, maybe 2 or 3. Long enough. Behind her, she heard movement. She turned. Through the glass walls, 3 executives stood in the hallway, watching her. One of them, a younger man in a gray suit, whispered something to the woman beside him. They both smirked. Mr. Harris, I swear to you, I didn't take anything. Her voice cracked despite herself. I found your wallet and I did the right thing. The right thing. He said it like an insult. Security will escort you back downstairs. We'll be reviewing footage and conducting a full investigation. Until then, you're suspended without pay. The words gutted her. Suspended? I didn't. That will be all. The security officer appeared at her elbow. His grip was firm but not rough as he guided her toward the elevator. The executives in the hallway parted like she was contagious. One of them, a woman with perfect blonde hair, pulled her purse closer to her body as Cora passed. The elevator doors closed. Cora's reflection stared back at her, orange overalls, blue gloves still on her hands, eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. Not here. Not where cameras could see. By the time she reached the basement level, word had spread. She could see it in the way Marcus, the day shift supervisor, avoided her eyes. In the way 2 other janitors stopped talking when she approached her locker. In the silence that followed her like a stain. Cora, hey, it was Lisa, one of the few people who'd ever invited her to lunch. But even Lisa's voice was cautious now, uncertain. Is it true? About the wallet. I turned it in, Cora said quietly, gathering her things. I didn't steal anything. Lisa nodded, but her eyes said something else. Where there's smoke. Cora left through the service exit, not trusting herself to walk through the lobby. The janitor's closet on the 2nd floor was where she finally broke. She sat on an overturned bucket, surrounded by mops and industrial cleaner, and let the tears come. Her chest heaved with fury and shame, emotions so tangled she couldn't separate them. She'd done the right thing. She'd done exactly what she was supposed to do. And she was being punished for it. I did the right thing, she whispered to the empty closet, to the ghost of her mother, to God or whoever might be listening. I did the right thing. But no one believed her. 3 floors above, in a cramped IT office filled with humming servers and flickering monitors, Derek Cho frowned at his screen. He'd been logging software updates when he'd overheard 2 executives laughing in the break room about the janitor who got caught. Something about it didn't sit right. Derek had been refilling his coffee at the security desk that morning. He'd seen Cora turn in the wallet. Seen the timestamp. Seen the way her hands shook as she signed the log. Now she was suspended? He pulled up the security footage archive and scrolled backward. 4th floor. Executive elevator bank. 4:47 a.m. There. Cora's cart came into frame. She stopped, knelt, picked something up. She held it for maybe 30 seconds, long enough to see what it was, then walked directly to the elevator. No hesitation. No counting. No opening. Derek sat back, chewing his thumbnail. Something was off. He rewound further. 4:15 a.m. A figure in a suit emerged from the stairwell, glanced around nervously, then dropped something near the elevator base and hurried away. Derek leaned closer to the screen. The man's face came into focus. Elliot Brooks. Junior executive. Son of someone important. Oh, Derek breathed. Oh hell. He saved the footage to a secure drive and sat in the glow of his monitors, deciding what to do with the truth. Derek Cho had worked in IT at Harris Global Industries for 6 years, and in that time, he'd learned one fundamental truth: people lie, but cameras don't. He sat in his dimly lit server room, the glow of 4 monitors painting his face blue-white, and watched the footage for the 3rd time. He needed to be absolutely sure before he did what he was about to do. The timestamp read 4:15 a.m. The executive floor was empty, silent except for the hum of the HVAC system. Then the stairwell door opened, and a man emerged, dress shirt wrinkled, tie loosened, moving with the jerky quickness of someone who didn't want to be seen. Elliot Brooks. Derek recognized him immediately. Junior executive in the acquisitions department. 28, Harvard MBA, son of Gerald Brooks who sat on the board of directors. The kind of guy who wore expensive watches and never remembered the names of people who fixed his computer. On screen, Elliot glanced over his shoulder, then pulled something from his jacket pocket. Even in the grainy security footage, the brown leather wallet was unmistakable. He dropped it near the base of the executive elevator, kicked it slightly under the chrome panel, then hurried back toward the stairwell. The timestamp jumped forward. 4:47 a.m. Cora's yellow cart rolled into frame. She stopped, noticed something, knelt down, picked up the wallet, held it for 30 seconds, Derek counted, then walked straight to the elevator. No counting money. No opening it more than a brief glance. Just someone doing the right thing. Damn, Derek muttered, scrubbing a hand over his face. He fast-forwarded further. 3:52 a.m. Elliot entering Weston Harris's private office. Derek had to switch camera angles to catch it, staying inside for 4 minutes, then leaving with something bulky in his jacket. The wallet. Derek sat back in his chair, the pieces falling into place. Elliot had stolen from his own CEO. Panicked. Tried to dump the evidence. And when an innocent janitor found it and returned it, Elliot had kept his mouth shut and let her take the fall. The right thing to do was obvious. But Derek had worked at Harris Global long enough to know that obvious and easy were rarely the same thing. HR occupied the 15th floor, a maze of cubicles and meeting rooms that smelled like coffee and laser-printed paper. Derek found Sandra Patel, the head of human resources, in her glass-walled office, eating a salad and reviewing a stack of performance evaluations. She looked up when he knocked. Derek? Everything okay with the network? Network's fine. This is about something else. He closed the door behind him and set his laptop on her desk. You need to see this. Sandra's expression shifted from mild curiosity to focused concern as she watched the footage. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. When the video ended, she set it down carefully. This shows Elliot Brooks taking the wallet. And dropping it. And Cora Davidson finding it exactly where he left it. Derek's voice was steady but firm. She's suspended for something she didn't do. This proves it. Sandra closed the laptop slowly. Derek, I appreciate you bringing this to me. But Elliot Brooks is, she chose her words carefully. He's a high performer. His father is on the board. This is a very serious accusation. Derek stared at her. It's not an accusation. It's footage. Timestamped, archived, backed up on 3 different servers. I understand that. Sandra folded her hands on her desk. But we need to be absolutely certain before we move forward. False accusations against an executive could open the company to legal liability. What about Cora? Derek's voice rose despite himself. She's suspended without pay because everyone assumed she was guilty. Where's her protection from false accusations? Sandra's jaw tightened. For a moment, Derek thought she might argue. Instead, she sighed. Give me until end of day. I'll review the footage with legal and bring it to Mr. Harris personally. Today. Today, Sandra promised. But Derek, this stays between us until then. Understand? He nodded, but the weight in his chest didn't lift. Weston Harris was reviewing acquisition reports when Sandra Patel knocked on his door at 6:15 that evening. The sun hung low over the city, painting his office in shades of amber and shadow. Sandra. I wasn't expecting you. I need you to see something, Mr. Harris. It's about the wallet incident this morning. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, irritation flickering across his face. I've already made my decision regarding Ms. Davidson. The investigation is... Sir. Please. Just watch. She set up the laptop and pressed play. Weston watched in silence. His expression didn't change as Elliot Brooks appeared on screen, dropping the wallet, fleeing. As Cora found it 30 minutes later and immediately took it to security. The timestamp on her log matched the camera perfectly. When the footage ended, Weston's jaw clenched so tightly Sandra could hear his teeth grind. How long have you had this? Derek Cho from IT brought it to me this afternoon. I wanted to verify it with legal before. This afternoon. Weston's voice was dangerously quiet. Cora Davidson has been suspended for 9 hours based on my assumption, and you've had proof of her innocence since this afternoon? Sandra's composure cracked. Sir, I needed to be certain before accusing an executive. Get out. Mr. Harris. Get Cora Davidson on the phone. Now. I don't care if you have to drive to her apartment yourself. Get her back here tonight. He stood, his hands flat on the desk. And send security to bring Elliot Brooks to my office. Immediately. Sandra fled. Weston stood alone in his office, watching the footage replay on the laptop screen. Cora's gloved hands picking up the wallet. The brief moment she held it, temptation and conscience fighting a battle that lasted 30 seconds, before she carried it to the elevator. He'd called her a thief. Accused her in front of witnesses. Suspended her without pay. An innocent woman. Guilt settled in his chest like a stone. Cora arrived at 8:43 p.m., escorted by a security officer who looked almost apologetic. She still wore her orange overalls, hair pulled back in the same neat braids, but her eyes were different. Hollow. Defeated. Weston stood by the window, his back to the door, trying to find words that didn't exist. How did you apologize for destroying someone's dignity, Mr. Harris? Her voice was small, uncertain. Security said you wanted to see me? He turned. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed protectively over her chest, waiting for the next blow to fall. Ms. Davidson. His voice came out rougher than intended. Please sit. She didn't move. Am I fired? No. The word felt inadequate. No, you're not fired. Then why am I here? Weston gestured to the laptop on his desk, still playing the security footage on loop. Because I was wrong. Cora's eyes flicked to the screen. She watched Elliot Brooks drop the wallet, watched herself find it, and something complicated passed across her face, vindication mixed with bitterness. You accused me in front of everyone, she said quietly. You suspended me. My coworkers think I'm a thief. I know. Weston forced himself to meet her eyes. I made an assumption based on, he stopped. There was no way to finish that sentence without indicting himself further. There's no excuse for what I did. The silence stretched between them, thick with everything he couldn't quite bring himself to say. Are you going to apologize, Mr. Harris? Cora's voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. Or are we just going to stand here and pretend this didn't happen? He opened his mouth. The words caught in his throat. I'm sorry felt too small for the weight of what he'd done. Weston cleared his throat, straightening his tie in a gesture that had become reflexive over decades of difficult board meetings and tense negotiations. He'd fired executives, dissolved partnerships, delivered news that ended careers. But this, apologizing to a woman he'd wronged, felt impossibly foreign. There was a misunderstanding, he began, his voice taking on the measured tone he used in press releases. The evidence suggested. A misunderstanding? Cora's voice cut through his carefully constructed sentence like a blade. Is that what we're calling it? Weston blinked, startled. In his experience, people didn't interrupt him. Especially not employees. Especially not janitors. Cora took a step forward, and something in her posture had changed. The defeated slump of her shoulders was gone, replaced by a rigid dignity that made her seem taller than her 5'4" frame. You didn't misunderstand anything, Mr. Harris. Her voice shook, but not with fear, with barely contained fury. You saw exactly what you wanted to see. What you expected to see. Ms. Davidson, I'm trying to. You saw a black woman in overalls holding your wallet, and you decided I was guilty. The words tumbled out now, 3 weeks of invisible labor and swallowed pride and clutched purses on elevators finally finding voice. You didn't ask what happened. You didn't check the cameras first. You just knew. Because that's what people like me do, right? We steal from people like you. That's not, Weston's jaw tightened. I made a mistake based on the evidence I had. The evidence? Cora laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. The evidence was that your wallet smelled like disinfectant. Because I clean your floors, Mr. Harris. I scrub your toilets. I empty your trash cans while you're in meetings deciding who deserves 6-figure bonuses. And yes, I wear gloves that smell like chemicals, because that's my job. That's what I do. She was crying now, angry tears she didn't bother to wipe away. Do you know what it's like to be invisible? To spend 40 hours a week in a building where people won't meet your eyes? Where men clutch their wallets when you push your cart past them? Where women pull their purses closer like you're going to snatch them right out of their hands? Weston opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. I've worked here for 4 years, Cora continued, her voice dropping to something rawer, more painful. 4 years of overnight shifts. 4 years of coming in at midnight and leaving at dawn so I don't have to see the looks on people's faces when they realize the cleaning lady is still here. And in 4 years, do you know how many people have learned my name? She waited, as if she actually expected him to answer. 6, she said finally. 6 people, out of hundreds, know my name. The rest of you? I'm just the woman who makes sure your wastebaskets are empty and your conference rooms smell like lemon polish. Ms. Davidson. You didn't see me this morning, Mr. Harris. Her voice broke. You saw what you expected to see. A poor black woman who couldn't resist the temptation of your money. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you think I am. The words hit Weston like a physical blow. He stood there, this man who commanded boardrooms and moved markets with a phone call, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: shame. You're right, he said quietly. Cora stopped, surprise flickering across her face. You're absolutely right. Weston moved away from his desk, away from the trappings of power, and for the first time since she'd entered, he looked at her, really looked at her. Saw. Weston's mouth went dry. What was the inhaler called? Respiclear. Made by some pharmaceutical company that, Derek stopped, his eyes widening slightly. Oh. Oh hell. Say it. MedTech Solutions. It's one of your subsidiaries, isn't it? The name hit Weston like a freight train. MedTech Solutions. Acquired 7 years ago as part of Harris Global's expansion into medical devices and pharmaceuticals. He'd signed off on the acquisition himself, barely reading past the profit projections and market share analysis. There was a recall, Weston said quietly, the memory surfacing. 4 years ago. Faulty valve mechanisms in certain batches. 4 years ago, Derek repeated. Malik died 3.5 years ago. The recall came too late. Weston braced himself against the break room table. His company. His subsidiary. His acquisition. The device that killed Cora Davidson's son had come from a company he owned. She tried to sue, Derek continued. I remember her talking about it once. She got a lawyer, filed papers, the whole thing. But Medtecha's legal team buried her. Dragged it out, argued the inhaler was used improperly, said there was no way to prove causation. Eventually her lawyer told her to drop it, said she didn't have the resources to fight a corporation that size. He looked at Weston with something close to contempt. Your corporation. I didn't know. Does that matter? Derek's voice was quiet but sharp. You own the company. You profit from it. Whether you knew or not, your signature is on everything they do. Weston had no answer for that. That evening, Weston sat alone in his office with a manila folder spread across his desk. He'd spent the day pulling records, reading reports he should have read years ago. The recipe clear recall, 847 defective units distributed. 12 reported failures. 3 deaths. Malik Davidson, age 9, among them. The lawsuit, Cora Davidson v. MedTech Solutions Incorporated, filed August 2022. Dismissed April 2023. Settlement offer, $15,000. Rejected. She'd rejected $15,000. $15,000 that could have kept her in school, kept her housed, kept her from scrubbing floors in a building owned by the man whose company killed her son. She'd rejected it on principle. Weston closed the folder and stared out at the city lights. His daughter Catherine's words echoed in his memory. You build empires on other people's suffering and call it success. He dismissed her as dramatic. Self-righteous. Now he wondered if she'd simply been right. He picked up his phone and called Sandra Patel. Sandra. I need you to create a new position. Director of Ethics and Community Initiatives. Full executive benefits, office on this floor, direct report to me. And I need you to offer it to Cora Davidson. There was a long pause. Sir, are you sure that's wise? Given what just happened. I'm sure. Draft the offer tonight. I want to present it to her myself tomorrow morning. Mr. Harris, with respect, she may not accept. After yesterday. I know. Weston's voice was heavy. But I have to try. Cora arrived at his office the next morning wearing the same orange overalls, her expression wary. She'd come because he'd asked, practically begged, but everything about her body language said she'd rather be anywhere else. Ms. Davidson. Thank you for coming. Weston gestured to a chair, and this time she sat, perched on the edge like she might flee at any moment. I've been doing some research. About your background. Your son. Her face went rigid. I don't want to talk about Malik. I understand. But I need to tell you something. He forced himself to meet her eyes. The inhaler that failed him. Recipe clear. It was manufactured by MedTech Solutions, a subsidiary of Harris Global. My company made the device that killed your son. Cora's expression didn't change. She'd already known. Of course she had. You sued us, Weston continued. You tried to hold us accountable, and we crushed you with legal fees and delays until you had no choice but to walk away. Why are you telling me this? Her voice was flat, emotionless. You want me to forgive you? To tell you it's okay? No. I want to offer you a job. That got a reaction. Cora's eyes widened, then narrowed with suspicion. A job. Director of Ethics and Community Initiatives. It's a new position. You'd work directly with me to review our corporate practices, our subsidiaries, our impact on communities. You'd have the authority to investigate, to recommend changes, to hold us accountable. He slid a folder across the desk. The salary is $120,000 annually. Full benefits. Your own office on this floor. Cora stared at the folder like it might bite her. You think you can buy me? No. I think you have insight this company desperately needs. You've seen us from the bottom up. You know where the bodies are buried, metaphorically and perhaps literally. You know what it costs when corporations prioritize profit over people. Weston's voice dropped. I can't bring Malik back. I can't undo the pain we caused you. But I can give you a platform to make sure it doesn't happen to someone else. Why? The single word was heavy with distrust. Why now? Because you feel guilty. Yes, Weston admitted. I feel guilty. But also because you were right. Yesterday, you told me I don't see people. You're right. I've spent 30 years building an empire, and I never once stopped to look at who was paying the price for it. He leaned forward. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to help me do better. Cora opened the folder. Her hands trembled slightly as she scanned the offer letter. When she looked up, her eyes were hard. If I take this job, I'm not doing it for you. I'm not doing it because I'm grateful or because I think this makes us even. I'm doing it because maybe, I can stop what happened to Malik from happening to someone else's child. That's exactly why I'm asking. She closed the folder. Then I accept. But understand something, Mr. Harris. I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself. I'm here for justice. And if that means exposing things about this company that you'd rather keep buried, I will. I wouldn't expect anything less, Ms. Davidson. They shook hands across the desk, a janitor and a billionaire, bound now by grief and guilt and the fragile possibility of redemption. Outside the window, the sun rose over a city full of invisible people, and Cora Davidson prepared to make them seen. Cora's new office occupied a corner of the 59th floor, 20 feet down the hall from Weston Harris's own suite. Glass walls on two sides offered a view of the city that still took her breath away, buildings stretching toward the horizon, highways ribboning through neighborhoods she'd lived in her entire life but had never seen from this height. The furniture was sleek and modern, a chrome desk with a glass top, an ergonomic chair that probably cost more than a month's rent, a bookshelf waiting to be filled. A brass nameplate sat on the desk, Cora Davidson, Director of Ethics and Community Initiatives. She ran her finger over the engraved letters and felt nothing but displacement. This wasn't her world. The view was beautiful, yes, but it was the view of someone looking down, not up. The office smelled like new carpet and furniture polish, not the industrial cleaners she'd spent 4 years breathing. When executives walked past her glass walls, they smiled and nodded, but their eyes held curiosity and judgment in equal measure. What's the janitor doing up here? She could almost hear them thinking it. But Cora hadn't accepted this position to feel comfortable. She'd accepted it to find answers. And on her third day, buried in a digital archive of quarterly safety reports, she found something that made her blood run cold. The document was labeled MedTech Solutions Q2 Safety Compliance Review, 2021. Routine paperwork, the kind of report that should have been dry and bureaucratic. Cora had been reviewing every file related to the pharmaceutical subsidiary, looking for patterns, for warnings that had been ignored. This report had been filed 6 months before Malik's death. Section 4.7, Quality Control Flagged Issues. RespiClear Inhaler Model RC450, Manufacturing Batch MT2104 showing 8.3% valve mechanism failure rate during pressure testing. Recommend immediate production halt pending investigation. Cora's hands froze on the mouse. 8% failure rate. That was catastrophic for a medical device. That should have triggered an immediate recall. She scrolled down to the resolution notes. Issue reviewed by executive team. Cost-benefit analysis indicates recall would result in $4.2 million revenue loss and significant reputational damage. Recommendation: continue production. Increase quality sampling from 2% to 5% of units. Monitor field reports for pattern of failures. The signature at the bottom of the approval, Marcus Webb, VP of Operations. Elliot Brooks Sr., Chief Financial Officer. Cora read it again. Then again. Her vision blurred as the words sank in. They knew. They knew the inhalers were defective and they chose profit over safety. They chose $4 million over the lives of the children who would use those devices. They chose $4 million over Malik. She pushed back from her desk, her chair rolling until it hit the glass wall behind her. Her breath came in short gasps. The office suddenly felt too small, too high, too exposed. The recall hadn't come until 4 years ago, 9 months after Malik died. 9 months after 2 other children died. How many more had suffered complications, emergency room visits, permanent lung damage because these men decided that production delays weren't worth the cost? Cora pulled out her phone with shaking hands and took photos of every page. Then she downloaded the file to a thumb drive, her IT training from community college coming back through muscle memory. She needed more. If she was going to accuse senior executives of criminal negligence, she needed evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. She needed proof that would stand up to Harris Global's army of lawyers. Derek Cho found her in the server room at 11:30 that night. She'd badged in using her new executive credentials, grateful that her access level had been set high enough to reach the archived database backups. Cora. Derek stood in the doorway, laptop bag over his shoulder. What are you doing here? It's almost midnight. She turned, and whatever he saw in her face made him close the door quickly behind him. I found something, she said. In the medtech files. About the RespiClear recall. What kind of something? She showed him the safety report on her laptop. Watched his expression shift from curiosity to horror as he read. Jesus Christ, he breathed. They knew. They knew the inhalers were failing and they just kept selling them. For 9 months. Cora's voice was eerily calm. I need to find out if there are more reports like this. More warnings they ignored. Can you help me search the backup archives? Derek pulled up a chair beside her. What are we looking for specifically? Any internal communications, safety reports, or quality control documents from MedTech between 2020 and 2022. Anything mentioning RespiClear or batch MT2104. They worked in silence for 20 minutes, the only sound the hum of servers and the click of keyboards. Derek found it first, an email chain between Marcus Webb and Elliot Brooks Sr., discussing how to manage the optics of the quality control issues. We can't afford a recall right now. The IPO is in 8 months. Any safety scandal will tank our valuation. Push the testing data into the next quarter and we'll deal with it after the stock offering. They delayed the recall to protect their IPO, Derek said, his voice hollow. They knew kids were dying and they waited because of stock prices. Cora copied everything onto her thumb drive. When she finally sat back, she had 47 documents, reports, emails, internal memos, that painted a clear picture of willful negligence. What are you going to do? Derek asked quietly. I'm going to tell Weston. Are you sure? Cora, these are senior executives. Brooks Sr. is on the board of directors. Webb has been with the company for 20 years. Derek's concern was evident. They're going to fight back. Hard. I know. Do you? He turned to face her fully. Last week, Weston accused you of theft over a wallet. Now you're going to tell him that his senior leadership covered up defects that killed children? What if he doesn't believe you? What if he thinks you're manufacturing evidence because of what happened to Malik? The question hung in the air between them. Cora had been asking herself the same thing for the past 2 hours. The next morning, Cora found Sandra Patel in the HR department, reviewing personnel files. Sandra looked up and smiled warmly. She'd been one of the few executives who'd gone out of her way to welcome Cora to the 59th floor. Cora, how are you settling in? Can I talk to you? Privately. Sandra's smile faded as she registered Cora's expression. She closed her office door and gestured to a chair. What's wrong? Cora laid out what she'd found, showing Sandra the safety reports and emails. She watched the older woman's face drain of color as she read. My God, Sandra whispered. This is criminal negligence. Maybe manslaughter. I'm going to bring it to Weston. But I wanted to tell you first. You helped me before, with the security footage. I trust you. Sandra set down the documents carefully, as if they might explode. Cora, listen to me very carefully. If you go forward with this, Marcus Webb and Elliot Brooks will destroy you. They have connections, resources, lawyers who specialize in making problems disappear. They will claim you're disgruntled, that you fabricated evidence, that you're trying to extort the company because of your personal tragedy. I know. Do you? Sandra leaned forward, her voice urgent. You've been in this position for 3 days. They've been here for decades. Weston may believe you, but the board won't. And once you make this accusation, there's no taking it back. Even if you're right, especially if you're right, they will come after you with everything they have. Cora thought of Malik. Of the hospital room where she'd watched him struggle for air while a defective inhaler sat on the bedside table. Of the lawsuit she'd filed alone, with no resources. No power, no voice loud enough to be heard. She thought of the 2 other children who'd died. Of how many more had suffered. Of the parents who'd never known that their children's deaths were preventable, that executives had chosen money over their lives. She'd stayed silent once before. Let Harris Global's lawyers bury her. Let the settlement offer insult her grief. Let the men responsible walk free because fighting them felt impossible. I appreciate the warning, Cora said quietly, gathering her documents. But I'm not staying silent this time. Sandra studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then be smart about it. Document everything. Keep copies off-site. And Cora? Watch your back. That afternoon, Cora stood outside Weston Harris's office, thumb drive in her pocket, evidence that could destroy his company, or redeem it, burning in her hand. She thought about all the reasons to walk away. Self-preservation. Fear. The very real possibility that he wouldn't believe her, that she'd lose everything she'd just gained. Then she thought about Malik's smile. His laugh. The way he used to read to her from his library books, stumbling over big words, determined to understand them. She knocked on the glass door. Weston looked up from his computer. Ms. Davidson. Come in. Cora stepped inside and closed the door behind her. We need to talk, she said. About MedTech. About the RespiClear recall. And about the executives in this building who knew children were dying and chose to do nothing. She placed the thumb drive on his desk. I found proof. Weston picked up the thumb drive, turning it over in his fingers. What kind of proof? Before Cora could answer, his office door opened without a knock. Marcus Webb strode in, followed by Elliot Brooks Sr., both men in perfectly tailored suits, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. Weston, we need to speak with you, Marcus said. His eyes flicked to Cora, cold and dismissive. Privately. I'm in the middle of a meeting, Weston replied, his tone sharp. This can't wait. Elliot Brooks Sr. was older than his son, silver-haired and distinguished, with a kind of face that inspired trust on television interviews. It's about Ms. Davidson. Cora's stomach dropped. What about her? Marcus pulled a folder from under his arm and placed it on Weston's desk. We've discovered some troubling irregularities in our digital archive system. It appears someone has been accessing confidential files without proper authorization and, we believe, altering documents. Weston opened the folder. Cora couldn't see what was inside, but she watched his expression shift from confusion to disbelief. These are MedTech safety reports, Weston said slowly. They show falsified data. Test results that were changed to show higher failure rates than what was actually recorded. Exactly, Elliot Brooks Sr. said gravely. And the access logs show these files were modified 3 days ago from a terminal on this floor. Ms. Davidson's terminal, specifically. Cora's blood turned to ice. That's a lie. I didn't modify anything. The logs are time-stamped, Marcus interrupted, his voice smooth as oil. 3 separate instances of unauthorized access and document alteration. All traced back to your login credentials. I accessed those files, yes, but I didn't change anything. Cora turned to Weston, desperation creeping into her voice. I found reports showing you knew about the RespiClear defects months before the recall. I copied them, but I didn't alter them. Unfortunately, that's not what the forensic analysis shows. Elliot Brooks Sr. pulled out another document. Our IT security team ran a full audit this morning. The original files show acceptable failure rates well within industry standards. The modified versions, the ones you accessed, show inflated numbers that would suggest criminal negligence. This is insane, Cora breathed. Why would I modify documents to make them look worse? I'm trying to expose what actually happened. Marcus's expression was sympathetic, almost pitying. Ms. Davidson, we understand you've suffered a terrible loss. Your son's death was a tragedy. But falsifying corporate records to support a personal vendetta is a serious crime. We could press charges. Weston was silent, his jaw tight, staring at the documents spread across his desk. Weston, Cora pleaded. Look at the thumb drive. The original files are on there. I didn't change anything. The thumb drive you're holding? Elliot Brooks Sr. nodded slowly. Also examined by our security team this morning. It contains the same altered documents. How could you have examined it? Cora stopped, realization dawning. They'd been monitoring her. Watching her investigation. And they'd planted evidence to discredit everything she'd found. This is a setup, she said, her voice shaking. They're framing me because I found proof of what they did. Proof that they knew the inhalers were defective and sold them anyway. Proof you fabricated, Marcus said calmly. I didn't fabricate anything. Weston. Elliot Brooks Sr.'s voice was firm, authoritative, the voice of a board member speaking to a CEO. I know you wanted to give Ms. Davidson a chance. But this behavior is exactly what we were concerned about when you created this position. She's using her access to manufacture evidence against the company that she believes wronged her son. It's corporate espionage at best, criminal fraud at worst. Weston finally looked up. His face was unreadable. Ms. Davidson, I'm going to need you to surrender your badge and leave the premises while we investigate these allegations. You're suspending me? Cora's voice broke. Again. Pending a full investigation, yes. And if the board has its way, terminating her employment permanently, Marcus added, along with pursuing legal action for damages to the company's reputation. Cora stared at Weston, searching his face for any sign that he believed her, that he remembered their conversation just days ago about seeing people clearly. But his expression remained carefully neutral. You have 24 hours to present any evidence in your defense, Weston said quietly. After that, I'll make my decision. The walk from Weston's office to the elevator felt like a death march. Executives whispered in doorways. Someone took a photo with their phone. By the time Cora reached the lobby, security was already waiting to escort her out. Ms. Davidson. The guard's voice was apologetic but firm. Your badge, please. She unclipped it from her lanyard with numb fingers and handed it over. The nameplate that had made her feel like an imposter 3 days ago now felt like a lifeline being cut. Outside, the afternoon sun was too bright, the traffic too loud. Cora sat on a bench across the street from Harris Global Industries and tried to breathe through the panic constricting her chest. Her phone buzzed. Derek. I heard what happened. This is bullshit. Meet me at Joe's Coffee in 30. Derek was already there when she arrived, laptop open, 3 empty espresso cups on the table beside him. They planted evidence, he said before she even sat down. I've been going through the access logs. Someone used a backdoor administrator account to modify the timestamps on those files and make it look like you did it. Can you prove it? Maybe. Probably. But it's going to take time to untangle, and time is something we don't have. Derek's fingers flew across his keyboard. Brooks Sr. and Webb are smart. They've covered their tracks well. Cora's phone rang. Sandra Patel's name appeared on the screen. Cora, where are you? Sandra's voice was urgent. Don't come back to the building. The board held an emergency meeting. They're voting tonight on whether to terminate you and pursue criminal charges. For evidence I didn't fabricate. I know. But they don't care. You're a threat to them, and they're eliminating the threat. Sandra paused. Weston's under enormous pressure. Half the board wants you fired immediately. They're saying he made a mistake giving you this position, that it was emotional decision-making, that you've compromised the company's legal standing. What does Weston say? He's quiet. He's listening but not committing. I can't read him, Cora. I don't know which way he's going to go. After Sandra hung up, Cora sat in the coffee shop and felt the familiar weight of powerlessness settle over her shoulders. This was the lawsuit all over again. The corporation with infinite resources, the individual with nothing but truth that no one wanted to hear. I should have known better, she said quietly. Should have known they'd destroy me before letting this come out. You're not destroyed yet, Derek said firmly. We still have 24 hours. To do what? They control the evidence. They control the narrative. They control Weston. Cora laughed bitterly. I was so stupid to think one honest conversation would change anything. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Weston, my office. 8 p.m. Come alone. Cora arrived at Harris Global at 7:55, using a visitor badge that felt like a brand of shame. The building was mostly empty, just security guards and the occasional executive working late. The elevator ride to the 59th floor felt like ascending to her own execution. Weston was standing by the window when she entered, his back to the door. The city lights spread below him like scattered diamonds. Close the door, he said without turning. She did. They stood in silence for a long moment. You can fire me again, Mr. Harris. Cora's voice trembled but held. You can believe their lies instead of my truth. You can protect your executives and your company's reputation. But this time, you'll have to ignore the truth to do it. This time, you'll know exactly what you're doing. Weston turned. His face looked older than it had that morning, the lines around his eyes deeper. Tell me something, Ms. Davidson. If our positions were reversed, if you had to choose between believing a woman you've known for less than a week, or trusting executives you've worked with for 20 years, what would you do? I'd look at the evidence. I did. The evidence says you're guilty. The evidence they manufactured says I'm guilty. Cora stepped closer. But you know something's wrong here. You have to. Why would I fabricate documents that I was about to show you? What possible benefit would that give me? They say you wanted to destroy the company that killed your son. I want justice for the company that killed my son. There's a difference. Her voice cracked. I could have taken this to the press, to lawyers, to federal regulators. I could have made this public immediately. But I came to you first because I thought maybe you actually wanted to do the right thing. Weston was quiet for a long time. Finally, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Derek Cho. This is Weston Harris. I need you to run a complete forensic audit on our MedTech archive system. I want to know every person who accessed those safety reports in the last month, including any administrator or backdoor accounts. He paused. No, not tomorrow. Tonight. I'll authorize overtime. I need results before the board meeting at 9 a.m. He hung up and looked at Cora. If you're lying to me, this will prove it. And if I'm telling the truth, then we're going to war with my own executives. Weston's expression was grim. And Ms. Davidson? I don't lose wars. The boardroom at 8:45 the next morning felt like a courtroom. Marcus Webb and Elliot Brooks Sr. sat on one side, flanked by corporate attorneys. Weston sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Cora was barred from attending, waiting in an empty office down the hall while Derek frantically compiled his final findings. At 8:57, Derek burst through the door, laptop in hand, eyes blazing with triumph. I got them, he breathed. I got everything. He showed Cora the screen. Proof of administrator access from Marcus Webb's terminal. Metadata showing when the files were actually modified, hours before Cora had ever accessed them. Email chains between Webb and Brooks Sr. discussing how to neutralize the Davidson problem. Cora stood. Let's go. She walked into that boardroom without an invitation, without permission, and placed Derek's laptop in front of Weston Harris. Before you vote, she said clearly, you should see this. And the war began. The silence in the boardroom was absolute. Derek's laptop screen glowed in the center of the conference table, displaying irrefutable evidence. Timestamp logs showing Marcus Webb had accessed the MedTech archive using an administrative override at 2:47 a.m., hours before Cora had ever logged in. Email chains between Webb and Brooks Sr. discussing damage control strategies and neutralizing the Davidson liability. Most damning of all, a deleted draft memo recommending they manufacture evidence of document tampering to discredit any potential whistleblower. Elliot Brooks Sr. had gone pale. Marcus Webb sat frozen, his practiced composure finally cracking. This is, Marcus started, his voice hoarse. This is taken out of context. Context. Weston's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood slowly, his hands flat on the table. The context is that you framed an innocent woman to cover up corporate manslaughter. The context is that you knew our products were killing children and you buried the evidence to protect your stock options. Weston, if we could discuss this privately, Elliot Brooks Sr. attempted, gesturing toward the other board members. No. Weston's jaw was set. We're done with private discussions. We're done with protected conversations and plausible deniability. He turned to Derek. Send everything to our general counsel. And to the FBI's white-collar crime division. And to every board member in this room. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You're making a mistake. The publicity alone will tank our stock price. Shareholders will sue. Let them sue. Weston's voice was cold. I'd rather face angry shareholders than the parents of dead children. You self-righteous bastard, Marcus spat. You built this company on the same decisions we made. You signed off on the MedTech acquisition. You approved the budget cuts that led to reduced quality testing. You're just as complicit as we are. You're right. The admission seemed to surprise everyone, including Marcus. Weston's voice dropped, heavy with something that might have been shame. I am complicit. I prioritized growth over safety. I trusted executives without asking hard questions. I built an empire and never once looked at the bodies I was standing on to reach the top. He met Marcus's eyes. But I'm looking now. And what I see is you and Brooks covering up multiple safety violations across 3 different subsidiaries, not just MedTech. Derek found them all. Derek nodded, pulling up another file. Falsified inspection reports in the Construction Materials Division. Suppressed environmental impact studies in manufacturing. Hidden workplace injury data in the logistics subsidiary. He looked at Marcus and Elliot Sr. with undisguised contempt. You two have been running a criminal enterprise inside Harris Global for at least 6 years. Elliot Brooks Sr. stood, his face flushed with anger. You're going to believe some IT technician and a janitor with a grudge over executives who've made this company billions. That janitor, Weston interrupted, his voice dangerous, has more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. And yes, I believe her. Because she had nothing to gain and everything to lose by telling the truth. He turned to the head of security standing by the door. Escort Mr. Webb and Mr. Brooks from the building. They're terminated effective immediately. Box up their offices. If they attempt to access any company systems or remove any documents, call the police. Marcus lunged across the table, his face contorted with rage. You can't do this. I'll bury you in lawsuits. 2 security officers moved quickly, gripping Marcus by the arms. He struggled for a moment, then went still, breathing hard. You've destroyed this company, he said, his voice shaking. You've destroyed everything we built. No, Weston replied quietly. I'm trying to save what's left of it. They dragged Marcus Webb out of the boardroom. Elliot Brooks Sr. followed under his own power, but his face was ashen, aged 10 years in 10 minutes. When the door closed, Weston turned to the remaining board members. I'm calling a company-wide meeting. Today. And I'm telling them everything. One of the older board members, Victoria Chun, who'd been with Harris Global since its founding, spoke carefully. Weston, think about what you're doing. Full transparency could expose us to billions in liability. We're already exposed. The only question is whether we face it honestly or let it destroy us from the inside. Weston's voice was firm. This company was built on cutting corners and silencing whistleblowers. That ends today. The atrium of Harris Global Industries could hold 500 people comfortably. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, it held nearly 800 employees from every department, crowding together on the marble floors Cora had once scrubbed alone in the darkness. She stood on the raised platform beside Weston, her orange overalls replaced by a simple navy blazer and slacks that Sandra Patel had helped her buy during lunch. Her hands trembled, but she kept them steady at her sides. Weston stepped to the microphone. The crowd quieted. Thank you all for coming. His voice echoed through the atrium. I've called this meeting because you deserve to know the truth about this company. About what we've done. About who we've hurt. He told them everything. The recipe-clear defects that killed 3 children, including Malik Davidson. The falsified safety reports signed by senior executives. The cover-up that spanned multiple divisions and multiple years. The frame-up of Cora Davidson when she tried to expose it. The crowd was silent, but Cora could see the shock rippling through them, executives pale-faced, maintenance workers nodding grimly as if they'd always suspected something was rotten at the core. Marcus Webb and Elliot Brooks Sr. have been terminated, Weston continued. They'll face criminal charges for their actions. But I want to be clear about something. Their corruption was enabled by a culture I created. A culture that rewarded profit over people. A culture where questioning authority meant risking your career. He paused, and for the first time, his voice wavered. I owe many of you an apology. But I owe one person in particular more than an apology. He turned to Cora. Ms. Cora Davidson worked in this building for 4 years. She cleaned your offices. She emptied your trash. She made this building shine every single morning. And most of you never learned her name. Cora felt hundreds of eyes on her. Some curious. Some ashamed. When she found my wallet and returned it, I accused her of theft, Weston said. When she uncovered evidence of corporate malfeasance, I nearly let corrupt executives destroy her career a second time. And through it all, she never stopped pursuing justice. Not revenge but justice, for her son and for every person harmed by this company's negligence. He faced her fully now, his eyes bright with unshed tears. You didn't just clean my floors, Ms. Davidson. You cleaned my conscience. The atrium was utterly silent. Effective immediately, Cora Davidson is promoted to Senior Vice President of Corporate Integrity. She'll have full authority to investigate any division, any executive, any practice within Harris Global. She reports directly to me and to this board. And if anyone attempts to retaliate against her or obstruct her work, they'll answer to me personally. Scattered applause began, then grew. Cora stood frozen as 800 people, executives and janitors, VPs and maintenance workers, applauded. Some were crying. One woman in a Harris Global polo shouted, "Thank you." Weston continued over the noise. We're also establishing the Malik Davidson Memorial Fund, a $50 million trust to compensate families affected by our safety failures and to fund independent safety research in medical devices and pharmaceuticals. It won't bring back the lives we've cost. But it's a start. The applause grew louder. Later, in the quiet of Weston's office, Cora held her new security badge. The engraving read, Cora Davidson, SVP Corporate Integrity. The photo showed her face, not smiling but dignified. Present. Seen. It's gold, she said softly, running her thumb over the metallic edge. Executive level, Weston confirmed. Access to every floor, every system, every file. He hesitated. Cora, I know this doesn't fix what happened to Malik. I know money and titles don't bring him back. No, they don't. Cora looked up at him. But maybe they can prevent another mother from burying her child because someone decided profit mattered more than safety. Weston nodded, his throat tight. I need you to understand something, Cora said quietly. I'm not doing this to make you feel better about yourself. I'm not here to absolve your guilt or rehabilitate your reputation. I know. I'm here because my son deserved better. Because those other children deserved better. Because every person in this building deserves to work for a company that values their lives more than its stock price. She clipped the badge to her jacket. And if that means burning down every corrupt system you've built and rebuilding from ash, then that's what I'll do. A ghost of a smile crossed Weston's face. I wouldn't expect anything less. They shook hands, not as CEO and employee, not as billionaire and former janitor, but as two people who'd found redemption in truth. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the city. Somewhere down there, in apartments and hospitals and schools, were all the invisible people who'd never been seen. Cora Davidson was going to make sure they were seen now. All of them. 6 months later, Cora Davidson walked through the marble lobby of Harris Global Industries in a tailored navy suit, her leather briefcase in one hand and a tablet in the other. Her heels clicked against the polished floor with the same rhythm her mop bucket wheels once made, but the sound carried a different weight now, not the soundtrack of invisibility, but the cadence of purpose. The morning crowd parted naturally around her. A junior analyst nodded respectfully. An executive held the elevator door. The security guard at the desk, Jimmy Rodriguez, who'd logged her found wallet 6 months ago, looked up and smiled. Morning, Ms. Davidson. Big day today, huh? Big day, she confirmed, returning his smile. The Malik Initiative was launching today. 6 months of work condensed into a press conference, a ribbon cutting, and the unveiling of new corporate policies that would ripple through every Harris Global subsidiary. Independent safety audits. Whistleblower protections with teeth. A community oversight board that included families affected by corporate negligence. And at the center of it all, a memorial fund that now stood at $73 million, growing as other corporations quietly reached out, asking how they could do better before their own scandal surfaced. Cora paused near the executive elevator bank. The same chrome base where she'd found the wallet. The same spot where everything had changed, or begun to change, at least. She caught her reflection in the polished metal, navy suit instead of orange overalls, posture straight instead of hunched from years of pushing carts, eyes that met the world directly instead of looking down. The woman staring back at her looked powerful. Confident. Seen. But what Cora saw most clearly was that she was still herself. The same woman who'd returned the wallet when keeping it would have solved her immediate problems. The same woman who'd pursued truth even when lies were easier and safer. She'd just stopped apologizing for taking up space. Ms. Davidson? Derek Cho approached, now wearing a shirt and tie instead of his usual IT polo. He'd been promoted to Director of Digital Ethics and Security, the first position of its kind in any major corporation. We're ready for you upstairs. The press is assembled. How many showed up? All of them. CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. Even international press. Turns out corporate accountability is a popular story. He grinned. Who knew? They rode the elevator together in comfortable silence. Derek had become more than a colleague over the past 6 months. He was a friend, one of the few people who understood what it cost to tell the truth in a place built on convenient lies. The 59th floor had been transformed. What was once a shrine to executive privilege now housed the Malik Initiative headquarters, open-plan offices where community advocates worked alongside corporate lawyers, where mothers who'd lost children sat on review boards with former FDA regulators. Sandra Patel met them at the elevator, tablet in hand, coordinating logistics with the efficiency that had made her invaluable during the tumultuous restructuring. Cora, thank God. Weston's been asking for you. He's nervous. Weston Harris? Nervous. Cora raised an eyebrow. His daughter's here, Sandra said quietly. Catherine. First time she set foot in this building in 2 years. Cora found Weston in his office, standing by the window in his customary position, but his shoulders were tense, his hands clasped behind his back instead of relaxed at his sides. She's early, he said without turning. The press conference doesn't start for another hour. Maybe she wanted to see you first. Privately. Or maybe she came to judge whether this is real or just another PR stunt. He finally turned, and Cora was struck by how much older he looked, not in a bad way, but in a way that suggested he'd stopped hiding from his own reflection. What if she thinks I'm using Malik's name to rehabilitate my image? Are you? No. The answer was immediate and firm. But how do I prove that to her? You can't, Cora said simply. You can only keep doing the work. Day after day. Month after month. Until the work speaks for itself. Before Weston could respond, there was a knock on the door. A young woman stood in the doorway, late 20s, with her father's sharp features softened by her mother's warmth. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, conspicuously casual in this temple of corporate formality. Dad, Catherine Harris said. The single word carried 2 years of distance. Catherine. Weston's voice broke on her name. I'm glad you came. I almost didn't. She stepped inside, her eyes taking in the changes to the office, the photos of the Malik Initiative on the walls, the stack of safety reports on his desk, the memorial plaque for the children lost to RespiClear failures. Then I read about what Ms. Davidson did. About what you did. I had to see if it was real. Cora moved toward the door. I should give you 2 privacy. No, please stay. Catherine's voice was gentle but insistent. You're the reason I'm here, Ms. Davidson. I want to hear about the initiative. About what's actually changing. So Cora stayed. She told Catherine about the Independent Oversight Board, about the families receiving compensation, about the policy changes being adopted across the industry. She showed her the memorial wall being installed in the lobby, photographs and names of every person harmed by Harris Global's negligence, including Malik's school picture, the one where he was missing his front tooth and grinning anyway. Catherine listened with tears streaming down her face. I told him he was heartless, she said finally, looking at her father. 2 years ago, I stood in this office and said he'd forgotten how to care about people. That he only saw profit margins and market share. You weren't wrong, Weston said quietly. But you're trying now. Catherine wiped her eyes. Actually trying. Not just writing checks and issuing statements, but fundamentally changing how you do business. I'm trying. Weston's voice was hoarse. I can't undo the past. Can't bring back your mother or undo the damage I caused. But I can try to be the man she believed I could be. The father you deserved. Catherine crossed the room and hugged him. Weston folded into the embrace, his carefully maintained composure finally breaking. Cora slipped out of the office and closed the door quietly behind her. The press conference was everything it needed to be. Weston spoke with genuine remorse about corporate failures. The families of the RespiClear victims told their stories. Independent regulators praised the initiative as a model for industry-wide reform. But what Cora remembered most was a moment that happened afterward, when the cameras had left and the crowd had dispersed. She stood in the lobby with Derek and Sandra, looking at the memorial wall they just unveiled. Malik's photo smiled out at them, 9 years old forever, holding a library book about space exploration. "You did it," Sandra said softly. "You actually changed this place." "We changed it," Cora corrected. "All of us. Every person who refused to stay silent." Derek gestured to the polished marble floors, gleaming under the late afternoon sun. "Remember when you used to clean these floors at 3 in the morning?" Cora smiled. A small sad smile weighted with memory. "Funny," she murmured. "I spent years scrubbing the floors of this building. Turns out, the dirt wasn't on the marble, it was in the hearts of the people upstairs." "And you cleaned that too," Sandra said. "Not cleaned," Cora replied, her eyes still on Malik's photograph. "Exposed. The dirt was always there. I just turned on the lights." That evening, Cora returned to her apartment, a new one, in a better neighborhood, with working electricity and rent she could pay 3 months in advance. But she'd kept some things from her old life: the threadbare wallet with her bus card, Malik's library card laminated and tucked inside, a photograph of him reading on their old couch, his inhaler on the side table beside him, the defective one before they'd known. She placed her new gold badge on the kitchen counter next to the photograph. "I did it, baby," she whispered. "I made them see. I made them pay attention." The apartment was quiet. No answer came, because Malik was gone and no amount of justice would bring him back. But somewhere in the city, a mother would put her child to bed tonight and trust that the inhaler on the nightstand would work when needed. Somewhere, a whistleblower would speak up without fear of being destroyed. Somewhere, a janitor would turn in a wallet and be believed instead of accused. That wouldn't bring Malik back either. But it meant his loss hadn't been meaningless. And for Cora Davidson, that was enough to keep fighting. 6 months after that, Harris Global Industries released its annual report. Profits were down 18%, the cost of doing business ethically. But employee retention was up. Public trust was rebuilding. Other corporations were adopting similar reforms, not out of altruism but because the Malik Initiative had proven that transparency and accountability weren't just moral imperatives, they were survival strategies in an age where secrets couldn't stay buried forever. Weston Harris, for the first time in his career, attended his daughter's graduate school ceremony. He sat in the crowd like any other parent, no VIP section, no special treatment. When Catherine received her master's degree in public health, he stood and applauded until his hands hurt. And Cora Davidson walked the halls of Harris Global Industries, carrying a tablet instead of a mop, wearing a badge that said SVP Corporate Integrity in gold lettering. People knew her name now. All of them. But more importantly, she knew theirs. The security guards, the administrative assistants, the contract workers and night shift janitors who kept the building running while executives slept. She learned their names, their stories, their struggles. Because she understood something that Weston was still learning, something that couldn't be taught in business school or boardrooms. Power isn't about how high you climb. It's about who you lift up on your way there. And Cora Davidson, who'd spent years invisible, was making sure no one stayed unseen ever again. The wallet that started everything sat in a frame now, mounted in the Malik Initiative headquarters beside a plaque that read, "Integrity isn't choosing right over wrong. It's choosing right over easy." Cora Davidson. The leather still smelled faintly of disinfectant. A reminder that sometimes, the hands that clean are the ones that change the world.